In answer to GBC questions yesterday, the government suggested it had made a final decision, but it publishes a handbook every year for information to students and parents, and it describes the eligibility criteria. There is a difference between the eligibility criteria of last year's handbook and this year's handbook, but worse still, there are two versions of the 2025 handbook, one that was given to parents and families a few months ago, and one that is now available, and which we've put a screenshot on our post today, which shows a very different eligibility criteria. So that really beggars belief that the government should now hide behind anonymous spokespersons and say, well, we haven't taken a final decision. I think it needs to justify it to the parents, to the families, and also justify it to the taxpayer, because ultimately there needs to be a rationale to this, which needs to be fair to taxpayers on both sides of this discussion and debate. And one of the key issues is, have they studied the implications? Because if this is going to cause a mass exodus of students from private schools into government schools, well then the implications of that on class sizes, on employment of teachers, is it going to end up costing the taxpayer more as a result of this policy because it's ill thought through, and ultimately there are going to be maybe a couple of dozen of students in the private schools that are going to go to university through this channel. So have they really looked at this? Have they looked at it properly? Or is this just another ill thought through policy of the GSLP?
Aside from the way it's been announced and the fact you think it's ill thought through, what is actually wrong with the policy? Perhaps paying for everybody is not sustainable anymore.
Well, I think we need to have that debate. But when you have a debate like that, you should do it properly, study the implications on cost one way or the other, and do so with sufficient time for people, families, to make decisions. You asked me the question, what's wrong with not paying for everyone? Well, ultimately, resources may be finite, but you need to justify things and do so in fair terms. If the issue is means, for example, because we think that children who are from wealthier families should not be given all the grant or all the tuition fees, well then who's to say that the children of wealthier families are in one school or another? I don't think you can make assumptions of that. And if you're going to make a means test on education, then you do so across the board wherever people are sending their kids to. What the government should be doing is tackling the real value for money issues that arise from its mismanagement of the economy and public finances. For example, the government is now renting offices for the CSRO that is costing more than £200,000 a year. They have paid rent for 2 years while those offices have been empty. It has cost the taxpayer nearly £500,000. That's probably the kind of money that we're talking about that it's allegedly going to save on this measure, but we say they're probably not going to save it because it's going to end up in additional cost to a taxpayer somewhere else in the education budget. So if the government wants to save money, it should look at the obvious places where it is wasting public money.